Greetings and salutations. Guess what we're doing today, kids? That was so not smooth. Oh, I filled this glass way too much. That's fine. We're joining my family history of alcoholism, apparently. Hi, friends. Greetings and salutations. Let's try this intro again. I did a video recently where I drank a couple glasses of some beverages and I tried to recap the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series while in that state of mind. I am returning today to do Heroes of Olympus, a series which, despite reading more recently, I remember a fuck ton less. So this will be cool. Blood of Olympus, I'm just dreading because I can't remember shit from Blood of Olympus, and I reread that like last year, not long ago. Even House of Hades, I'm currently doing readings, like reading it live on TikTok lives. And even House of Hades, I'm like, that's a blur in my mind. I, again, have had a bottle of something, and I'm having this glass, which is nearly a whole bottle. It's not, when I say bottle, I'm not talking like a bottle of wine. I mean like single serve. No idea when this will go up, because I have this terrible habit of filming a bunch of videos because filming is fun and then not editing them until the last minute because I don't like editing myself. Happy New Year if this is going up around the New Year, which it might, otherwise it'll be after, and forget that I said this. Also, happy birthday Taylor Swift. I'm filming this on Taylor Swift's birthday. The Lost Hero. We open with Jason Grace. We don't have fun chapter titles anymore in this series. You want fun chapter titles? Too bad. So sad. We wake up with a kid named Jason Grace, and he is on a bus. And he doesn't know who he is. And he wakes up and he turns to, I think there's a girl holding his head next to him, and he thinks she's pretty. And there's another kid who's talking to them, and he's like, where are we? What's my name? And they're like, haha, so funny, Jason. That is such a good joke. And he's like, no, I am so serious. I don't know where I am. I don't know who you are. Like that you're holding my hand, pretty girl, but like I don't know what's going on. They really can't tell if he's kidding or not. There's a very, very loud teacher on a bus. It appears that we're on a field trip of some kind. Sound familiar? A parallel. He's very loud and quite violent, and he announces that they're going to that place in America. My brain keeps saying Bermuda Triangle, and that's simply so wrong. It's a fucking landmark, Ashlee, Jesus. Grand Canyon! Fuck me, the Grand Canyon. So they're going to the Grand Canyon and they have some worksheets to do, and Jason kind of pieces it together through conversation with Piper and Leo that this is, again, a school for like misfit kids. It's for kids who don't really have anywhere else to go. And there's a bunch of bullies around who are giving Piper in particular a really hard time, just like kind of hitting on her. And it's not super cool. Can't remember exactly how it happens, but a bunch of wind spirits show up. And Jason can fly, and Piper goes to fall, but Jason catches her, and him and the teacher, who turns out to, I don't know if we notice it here, but he turns out to be a satyr. He fights off the spirits as well, and they all help out. A chariot arrives, and a couple kids get off of the chariot. One is this very, very cuddly looking guy from memory, and the other is a blonde woman who looks very intense, and they're all like, oh damn, she means business. And she walks up and she kind of looks at Jason's feet and is like, where's Percy Jackson? Where is he? Hera told me that, like, I had a dream that he was gonna, I know that he was gonna be here. Where is he? And Jason's like, I'm so sorry, I have no idea who you're talking about. We don't know anyone by that. And she just storms off and is acting like this was a huge waste of her time. And they're kind of like, what's her deal? And the guy with them is kind of like, I'm really sorry, that's Annabeth Chase. Her boyfriend Percy Jackson has been missing for a week and she thought he was going to be here. So they basically, I don't know if they explain it. Piper, Jason, Leo get it explained to them that they are demigods. And they're going to be taken to Camp Half-Blood. And they just saw some monsters, and they don't really know why Jason's memory has been wiped. No one has an explanation for that. That's just something he simply has to be dealing with. They take this chariot back to camp, and Leo immediately gets claimed by Hephaestus, but Jason and Piper don't know who their godly parents are yet. Piper kind of goes off of this little not side quest thing, but she kind of gets taken under her wing by Annabeth and Rachel Elizabeth Dare a little bit, who kind of show her around camp. Annabeth actually opens up to her a lot about Percy being missing, and Piper opens up to Annabeth about how she had thought Jason was her boyfriend, or Jason is her boyfriend as far as she knows. They have been together only recently did they officially get together, but she just liked him so much, and they had this whole like semester build up to their romance, and now Jason can't even remember who she is, and she's just learning all of this stuff about, you know, the camp, and she's not sure if it was even real or if it was the trick of the mist. And Annabeth takes Piper with her to pick out a weapon, and Piper is a dumbass and doesn't pick up a gun. There's a gun in that weapon shed, and she doesn't pick it. She picks up Cadatrus, Helen of Troy's weapon, I believe. Leo goes off on his own, kind of meets up with some of the other Hephaestus kids, and sees that the whole cabin has been really kind of in disarray since their last cabin leader, Charles Beckendorf, was killed in the Titan War the summer before. And they have all these kind of repairs going around. There's this one dragon that's causing all these fucking problems for all of camp, just destroying things, but also for them specifically. And they talk about how there's this like curse about Hephaestus kids who have fire powers, and he's like, oh fuck, and we learn that he has fire powers, and he accidentally started a fire that killed his mother when he was young, and that's why he kind of was at the school that he was at, because he kept on, you know, going through like foster homes that didn't treat him very well, and he, you know, kind of wound down this path of trouble from all of that. And Piper's there because her dad is famous but doesn't give her that much attention. She lashes out a lot by basically just talking people into giving her things a lot that they then later report as thievery, because it is. But she's like, no, I just talked people into giving me a car, and he gave me a car. What do you want me to do about it? Like, Jason, I can't really remember how, but I think it happens early on, gets, like, they work out that he's a son of Zeus, even though he keeps saying some Roman stuff. But I feel like they work out really early on that he's a son of Zeus, because I feel like he gets sent to Zeus's cabin quite early. Maybe Chiron works it out. I don't know. I just feel like they know that he's a son of Zeus. I feel like they know that he's a son of Zeus. The first campfire, the first night that they're there, Piper gets claimed by Aphrodite and gets this magical blessing that makes her really pretty, and Jason calls her hot in front of the whole camp. And she's really annoyed about it because this like makeover, this blessing, is just very much so like the, you know, white beauty standard, really, and that's not something Piper feels comfortable in. That's not how Piper feels herself, so she doesn't want it. And she gets brought into the Aphrodite cabin, and they basically have like a tyrannical ruler. Drew is like the head counselor, and she's like horrendous. She bullies these small children and just like tells everyone they have to break everyone's heart. She's real mean about stuff, and I do actually feel sympathy because she would have been close with Selena Beauregard, and she's just dealing with grief a lot. She's a kid. I don't really hold that much angst towards her, but she's horrible. How do they get the quest? Somehow, we all learn and know that Hera has been kidnapped and is being held hostage, and a quest needs to happen for them to go and save Hera. So, I think it's Jason's quest. He invites Piper and Leo along with them, and Annabeth goes off on her own search for Percy, keep looking for him. Yeah, they get given this quest, and Leo has found the dragon that was giving everyone problems in the woods, fixed him up, and the dragon led him to this secret bunker with all these like old Hephaestus plans, I think. I'm fully pretty sure I'm mixing this up, actually. Yeah, though, leads him to the fun bunker of plans, and they hop off on this dragon that Leo is called Festus, and they go off on their merry little way to try and find Hera. And I don't think they have much of a plan about where they're heading yet, that they go out with some hope. Piper has been having dreams about her dad having been kidnapped, and there's giants there, and they're like, hey, bring your friends to us, we'll kill them, but your dad will go free, and if you tell your friends about these, we'll kill your dad. But come here. What happens once they go on the quest? I truly don't know shit. I'm gonna cheat a little bit. No, I'm not cheating. I'm definitely not cheating. Oh, that doesn't help me out. Oh! In Jason's cabin, though, he does see a photo of a girl that looks familiar, and Annabeth is like, that was Talia Grace. She was my friend. We had another friend. He's gone. I think they go to Canada first, which I think is when they meet the snow woman, Elsa. Let's call her Elsa. That's not her name. Her name is hard to pronounce. It's like Keone. She has two brothers and her, and they have a dad who decides they can go free. What the fuck happens? She wants to freeze them, but they don't get to. I think they just leave there unscathed. I think her dad just lets them go. And then they meet some wind spirits. Are giving them a hard time. No, because they fight a giant at one point. Jason gets knocked out a bunch. Piper eventually tells them what's going on with her dad, though, and they're like, you're silly. We're going to help you find your dad and protect him. And you had nothing to worry about, babes. Because they're good friends. Piper is a vegetarian, and Piper makes her vegetarian tacos, and that's very nice of him to do. Yeah, we fight a giant, and we meet this, like, wind spirit whose personality keeps changing. I think we meet King Midas at one point, and he turns people to gold, but one of them gets them out of there, and Festus breaks around King Midas. So he's flying, and he gets frozen and sent down, and it was Elsa who froze him, I think. And then at one point they run into Talia, and turns out Jason is Talia's little brother. They had the same mother and the same father, but for Jason he was in his Roman form, and for Talia in his Greek form. He was sent away when Talia was young, when Jason was like 2 years old. They kind of just took him somewhere and dropped him off, and Talia assumed he was dead, and then she went on and had like her terrible childhood with her mother. And Jason, turns out he was sent to the wolf house, where Lupa the wolf was like, you're gonna prove yourself to me or we will eat you. And he proved himself. And they promised to catch up again later. And they help them either save Piper's dad or save Hera. Can't remember which. But they do both. They end up saving Piper's dad, and he basically gets his memory wiped because he's having a mental breakdown over learning that the gods are real and Piper's a demigod, and knowing all the danger that she's put herself through. He's having like a bit of a mental breakdown about it. They wipe his memory, and they also save Hera. People are real pissy about it, which is so valid. She's a little bitch about it. Jason looks at her in her godly form and nearly dies. But he doesn't. He's alright. He basically reveals that they're all part of this plan she has against Gaia. This whole book, they've been kind of being taunted by this dirt-faced woman who's basically like, I'm gonna rise and I'm gonna kill you, I think. And she's been kind of watching over Leo in particular since he was a kid. She was his crazy babysitter who tried to like kill him a bunch of times, and also was kind of behind his mother's death. So Leo is pretty pissy about having her be coming back, and she's really been taunting them this whole time. And Hera's like, yeah, she's rising, and all of the gods have like their personality splitting, and you were all instrumental in my plan to stop her from rising. And they are pretty mad at her, justifiably, and they head back to camp to speak of their successes and also relay everything that they've learned. Piper comes back and becomes head of the Aphrodite cabin because she's had a quest, and the cabin votes for her to be leader. Jason now knows that the photo in his bunk is Talia, and Leo is popular in the Hephaestus cabin, and everyone thinks his fire powers are cool, actually, and not scary. And they have this kind of big briefing with Chiron and all the camp counselors in the big house at the very end of the book, where they basically get Jason to say, I'm from another camp. I'm from a camp called Camp Jupiter. There is a Roman camp. And Chiron explains that they knew that they existed, or they thought that they existed, but they were always kept very separate because Romans and Greeks have this ancient rivalry, and they always just are at war with each other. So they kept from each other. The Romans did actually help out in the Titan War, but they were fighting a completely separate fight because they cannot interact, or bloodshed will happen. Jason was plucked from there and sent to Camp Half-Blood with his memories wiped to kind of be the first bridge between the two camps, and they have an idea that is where Percy Jackson is. That's the end of book 1. We start book 2 with Percy. He's back. My baby boy is back. He's on the run from some Gorgons who are trying to kill him. He's apparently been on the run for a couple weeks at this point. He doesn't have much with him. A panda pillow pet, because he's the cutest soul ever. And he's been on the run from some Gorgons, and he doesn't really know why he's surviving so much shit, but he keeps surviving all their attacks on him. He keeps killing them too, but they just keep respawning and respawning constantly. Like, they're not staying dead. He has no memories except for one thing. He remembers Annabeth Chase. He remembers his girlfriend, Annabeth. He's on the run from them, and he ends up coming across this this old woman who's like, you must carry me across the river. And he's like, I don't know if I want to. And she's like, this is your test. If he walks through the river, then his fucking curse of Achilles gets wiped, even though he doesn't even really, I don't think he really knows that he has it. But he carries her across because he's a good person. And he meets these two other campers who, like, are aware of what's happening. They're like, get to camp, because there's this person, like, who's clearly a demigod. So they're welcoming him in while he tries and gets rid of the Gorgons, and I think he gets them washed away in the river somehow. And then the old woman is like, whoa, I'm Hera, I'm the goddess, you've pleased me, I'm Juno, sorry, I'm the goddess Juno, you've pleased me well. And the other two are like, holy shit, hi Juno. And they take him to camp and take them to their leader, Rhaena, Camp Jupiter they're at, and they're like, yeah, Hera kind of personally brought him here and blessed him, so we gotta take him in. We don't know how the fuck he survived so long out there, because he's clearly attracting monsters and is old and didn't come from the wolf house. Here you go. And Rhaena is just kind of like, do you remember me? And he's like, no. And she's like, okay. You can go to the 5th cohort. They're kind of like our worst little cohort, our worst little group. But go meet Octavian first. He's gonna give you a prophecy. So Percy heads over to Octavian, who's basically like the worst version of an oracle, and he takes Percy's panda pillow pet and kills it, like fully guts this pillow pet in front of poor Percy Jackson, because they used to do like live sacrifices with like animals, but they don't do that anymore. So he uses plush pets. And Octavian's just a bit of a dick. He does give a prophecy, I can't remember it, but he's a bit of a dick. And Percy's just going around being like, does anyone know Annabeth Chase? I would like to speak to Annabeth Chase, but no one knows her. He runs into this kid called Nico, who's Hazel's brother. Hazel and Frank, the demigods he met. He runs into this kid, Nico, who's Hazel's brother. Bit shifty, but Nico's just like, nice to meet you, Percy Jackson. Hee hee. Little shit. We jump into Hazel's point of view at one point. She has a crush on Frank. She is from the past. She's from, I believe, the 40s. Could be earlier than that. She's from the past, though. We don't know the details of it just yet. She occasionally has, like, vivid flashbacks that she gets lost in, like, blackouts of the past, where we basically know that she has some, like, gems and stuff. Any gold or gems or whatever in the earth kind of pop up around her, and we learn that basically all we know at this point is that's a curse that did her bad in the past, and she's come back to life. We also meet Frank, and we know that he feels really, really out of place. He's relatively new to Camp Jupiter, and he hasn't been claimed by his godly parent either. And he feels really out of place because he doesn't feel that he's very talented at many things. And a lot of people just make fun of the 5th cohort in general, but especially just kind of like his size. At one point, they have a big camp game, kind of like Camp Half-Blood's Capture the Flag, but they call it War Games, and I think they're also doing Capture the Flag or something like it. And everyone's like, it's going to be easy, we can destroy the 5th cohort as we always do, but Percy ends up using his mortar powers to help them win. But one of their campers gets like backstabbed literally and killed during the game, but then she immediately comes back. She just immediately comes back to life. And not Ares, Mars, his Roman form, shows up and is like, hey, I'm here to give you guys a quest, because as you might have just noticed, people aren't staying dead. The doors of death are like open, like no one's staying dead, and that's a problem. So I need someone to go to Alaska and free Death, the god. We need to free Thanatos. We need to free the god of death. Also, Frank, you're my son. So fun. People throw a little bit of a hissy fit, Octavian in particular, but Rhaena allows this quest to happen. So Percy picks Frank and Hazel to go with him, as he should, and they head off on their own quest that I can't remember. I know at one point they end up meeting this guy with vials of Gorgon's blood or whatever. Percy bets him like 50-50, like he needs some information from him, and Percy bets the Gorgon's blood of like they'll each drink a vial for the information or whatever. Percy is pretty sure he drank the wrong vial, but he kind of taunts Gaia into being like, you need me, I know that you need me for your plan, and so he ends up surviving. Also go to Frank's grandmother's place, and she maybe dies, and they have a fight there, and Frank learns that his family gift is to transform into animals, which is very fun and cool. Percy goes by the Seal Santa Man and is like, I remember that dude, I think. I was here with Annabeth, I think. Or looking for Annabeth, I think. And what else happens on this quest? The Scheist joke happens, but I can't remember really how. We get a lot more flashbacks to Hazel and her past, and like the guy that she liked back in the day. His name was Sammy. And we just learned that basically, yeah, her curse was basically her mother's curse. Her mother broke some rules and got cursed, and the curse was kind of placed upon Hazel, and they became ostracized from society a little bit for it because they would sell their jewels that Hazel would find, and they would all lead to incredible bad luck. And then Gaia manipulated Hazel's mother into almost rising a certain giant that she's rising again now, like years and years ago, and Hazel gave her life to stop that from happening, and it killed both Hazel and her mother. And then Hazel also was offered like Elysium, but fully like gave that up in order to get a fair kind of trial for her mother too, and both of them just ended up in the fields of Asphodel, where Nico found her when he was looking for his sister Bianca. He stumbled across another sister because Hazel is a daughter of Pluto, and he brought her back to life, and she's been at Camp Jupiter ever since. They eventually make their way to Alaska, and that one giant, yeah, he's rising, but he's the one. Usually when you kill giants, you need a god and a demigod to work together, but this guy just like can't be killed in Alaska, so they just basically drag him across the state line and kill him. And they free Thanatos, and Thanatos is like, you know what, Hazel? I'm gonna let you go. I'm gonna let this one slide. You can keep living. I don't really mind. And they head back to Camp Jupiter, where they run into Tyson, and they've made a friend along the way called Ella, who's a harpy, and she remembers like every word she's ever read, including, they reckon, some Sibylline prophecies, which are pretty important to the Romans, but they don't want Octavian to know about that. So they just are like, she knows nothing. She's just a funny little bird. And Ella and Tyson are kind of flirty. They get back. There's like Camp Jupiter's being attacked by some group of monsters. And Percy had Iris messaged Annabeth earlier in the book, but being a real fucking dumbass about it, to be honest. She shows up, but she's like, Percy, oh my god, we've been trying to reach you for fucking months. And he's like, are you real? That's all he says, and she's like, stay where you are. Just stay exactly where you are. We're coming for you. And then he fucks off to another state. Can't listen to any instructions. So they go into the battle. They're winning some battles around Camp Jupiter, and then he waits because he knows that the Argo-2 is coming with Annabeth on it. Cliffhanger! We start book 3 with Annabeth. This is the first time we're getting an Annabeth POV in this whole fucking series, and about to have time. We start it in her POV, and she basically says there's been some weird little feelings in the Argo-2 all morning, but she's ignoring them because she just can't wait to see Percy. But she's also really nervous to see Percy because for her at this point, it's been, I think, 8 months since he disappeared. Because Percy, unlike Jason, was just like plucked out of Camp Jupiter and immediately plopped into Camp Half-Blood. Percy was like plucked out of Camp Half-Blood, put in hibernation for fucking ages, and then plopped into Camp Jupiter. So he's been really out of commission for a while, and Annabeth, you know, she's pretty insecure still. She's come a long way, we can tell pretty much as soon as we meet her, in terms of her abandonment issues and jealousy, but she's nervous that, you know, he may not even remember her. He may have gotten a new girlfriend. Jason is with Piper at this point, you know, someone that he met right when he woke up with his memory erased. What if the same thing had happened to Percy? She's real nervous. But then she gets on the ground and she sees him in the middle of a crowd, and everything just stops, and they run at each other and they kiss, and it's like everyone else in the world falls away, and she thinks he tastes like the sea, and she thinks seaweed brain, and they have this beautiful moment where they're just embracing, and then she judo flips him, and she basically threatens him to never leave her like that again, and he laughs and goes, I missed you too. And then she realizes that everyone's watching her, and she's like, oh fuck, that probably seemed aggressive. She stands up and she's like, hi, sorry, I'm Annabeth. I promise I don't judo flip people who aren't my boyfriend. And Raina's like, I like your style. They kind of get welcomed into Camp Jupiter. Like, all of the 7 get welcomed. No, they're not the 7 yet. All of the people from Camp Half-Blood, which is Jason, hi again, Leo, and Piper. They get welcomed back. And Annabeth, obviously. Did I say Annabeth? I don't know if I said Annabeth. They get welcomed into Camp Jupiter, and they get given a dinner and whatever, and Percy's like, hey, I really want to, like, give you a walk around later, Annabeth, and show you some things, and she's like, okay. But Raina's like, hey, Annabeth, I want to have a private chat with you. Come walk with me. And Raina basically goes on this walk with Annabeth. They get hot chocolates. It's really cool, and they are very similar characters. This is a real bonding moment that we see between the two of them just kind of talking about leading their respective camps and being women in leadership. And Raina talks about how, you know, Percy and Annabeth fucked up her childhood and she doesn't see her sister all that much anymore. All of that fun stuff because they were on Circe's Island back in the day. All of that fun stuff. I believe Leo's still up in the ship, and starts firing on Camp Jupiter. Just starts firing, and so they have to really quickly piece up out of there. They, everyone from Camp Half-Blood, and then Percy, Hazel, Frank, all hop up on Argo 2, and they leave, and they're like, oh, we just did an act of aggression against Camp Jupiter. That can't look good. And it doesn't. But it turns out there's these ghosts on board who are, like, possessing people. And they'll come back in a minute, but they basically need to put the ship down somewhere to do repairs. Leo and Hazel go off on... They all go split off, and Leo and Hazel go off on their own. And we basically learn that Leo Valdez looks exactly the same as Sammy, which is a real weird kind of moment for Hazel in her brain. And they meet Narcissus, and they have a whole little thing where Leo meets the character that should have been his love interest if he was going to get one, Echo. I'm fine about it. They have that little adventure, and they all get supplies, and then they're ready to get back on the ship and fly off again. And they start flying towards the ancient lands because they're trying to retrieve the Athena Parthenos, because that is the only thing that will bridge the divide between Rome and Greece, and also they think that's where Nico is. Nico is missing. That's important. At one point they land again, and Piper, Jason, and Percy go off on their own, and Jason and Percy get possessed by those ghosts too, and start trying to fight each other to the death, but Piper Charm speaks them away. And it's alright, she's powerful, she's got this. On another little expedition, Annabeth, Piper, and Hazel will meet Aphrodite, and Aphrodite's like trying to be a cool mom, but she's not really a cool mom, but she's trying. She has some misogynistic things to say, but it's alright, she's trying. The Romans catch up to them, and Annabeth throws her knife into the ocean when they get cornered, and Percy just does this massive tidal wave that wipes out the Romans. It's like, you dropped this, and Annabeth says, I love you. It's the first time that we see Annabeth say, I love you. Percy and Frank go to an aquarium and get trapped in there, but they break out. One night on the Argo 2, Annabeth wakes Percy up and asks him to come with her to her favourite place on the ship, the stables, so they can actually catch up. They haven't really had a moment together since they reunited, and they basically just go have this romantic night where they basically just be emotional with each other for the first time in a while. She is very vulnerable with him about how hard it was when he was gone, and he opens up about how the only way he could cope while he was gone was like making plans for their future, and she has conflicting feelings about that, but she's relatively on board, and she talks about how much they've gone through and how she's liked him since they were 12, and it's very, very sweet. It's very cute. And they fall asleep in the stables together, and then everyone else is like, they find them the next morning and are like, oh, you two are in trouble. And nothing happened. It's a children's book, but jokes are implied. I don't think it's them, but at some point Annabeth opens up about how she's been given the Mark of Athena. She ran into her mum, Athena, although she was Minerva at the time, one day when she was heading to, I think, heading to or home from Percy's apartment, because while Percy was missing, she would go and hang out with Sally sometimes, just because they were the only two people in the world who understood how much the other missed him. So they had these kind of emotional debriefing sessions, and she was either heading to or from one of them one time. She ran into her mum, and her mum was like, you know what? I hate you, and here's a Mark of Athena. Go get my statue if you're a good daughter. You'll suck though. She's a real bitch about it, and I've never forgiven her for it. And so basically, she knows that she has to follow the Mark of Athena to find the Athena Parthenos, and she knows that she has to do it alone. Also, her invisibility cap doesn't work anymore because Athena's the worst, and no child of Athena has ever done this successfully. Children of Athena have been trying to do it for centuries, and no one has ever lived. So, real good odds. They wind up in Rome, and Percy and Annabeth have this final moment together. They eat pizza before she goes off on her quest alone, and Percy doesn't really want to let her go, but he knows that she has to, and she heads off on her own, and then he goes off with Piper and Jason, and Piper has been having this vision about them all drowning, and Hazel, Leo, and Frank go off, and Leo has been carrying around this fortune cookie from, not Narcissus, Vengeance, nope, from a god, from the Narcissus encounter, that basically is like, this will be advice that you'll need, it'll get you out of a pickle, but it'll cost you. They'll go off on their own. Annabeth starts going on her quest. She breaks her ankle, big sad. She starts heading towards what she has worked out now as Arachne. Papa, Jason, Percy, they do nearly drown, but then they don't. Leo opens that fortune cookie to save Hazel and Frank, but he doesn't know what it'll cost him yet. I think Hazel, Leo, and Frank are the ones who to find and save Nico. Jason, Percy, and Piper are in like a gladiator kind of styling thing with Mr. D. I can't remember why. And they get out of there. And Annabeth has met Arachne, and she's terrifying, but she's got this plan. Because earlier in the book, Frank got made fun of for not understanding Chinese handcuffs, and he asked Annabeth to explain to him how they worked, because Annabeth was, like, the only person he trusted not to make fun of him. So she had shown him and drawn up this diagram on her, like, laptop, Daedalus's laptop, of Chinese handcuffs, and she worked out that she's going to get Arachne to, like, weave this giant version of Chinese handcuffs, because she's trying to trick Arachne into being like, well, don't kill me, I'm the architect of Olympus, I'll show the gods your work, and your work will be displayed up there, and everyone will see that your work is better than Athena's, finally. She gets her to weave these Chinese handcuffs, and she goes in them, and she gets stuck, and obviously the more she panics, the more stuck she gets. And they manage to lift the Athena Parthenos out of this. Her friends find her. They manage to lift the Athena Parthenos out of this chamber, but everything around it is crackling. All the floor in this room is, like, cracking. It's basically only being held together by, like, Arachne's, like, webs, and they're obviously falling. And Arachne, like, falls down into this pit that Annabeth's, like, she knows that it's Tartarus. She knows that it's Tartarus down there. But she hugs Percy, and they're together, and, you know, they get the statue out, but then she feels a tug on her ankle, and she gets yanked all over. It's just pulled down until she's hanging off, like, a cliff, because she still had a bit of web tied around her ankle, and as Arachne has plummeted into Tartarus, the web has been connected. Me doing the Spider-Man hands. The web has been connected, and it's now pulling Annabeth down. And Percy's, like, holding on over the edge, and Annabeth goes, let me go, you can't pull me up. And he goes, no, I'm not leaving you. You're never getting away from me. Never again, as long as we're together, remember? And she just kind of goes, as long as we're together. And Percy looks up, and Nico's there, kind of waiting over them. And he's like, Nico, meet us at the other side. Meet us at the doors of death. We need you to be there. Meet us at the doors of death. We're going to get to the other side. And then he lets go, and him and Annabeth fall into Tartarus. And the rest of them just have to figure out how they're going to get to the doors of death. So, cut to House of Hades. We're traveling. Hazel gets called away, and she has to meet up with that witch one, Hecate. Hecate's like, you're going to have to prove yourself with the mist here. I'm going to give you some options. You're going to need to prove yourself with the mist if you want to save your friends. And Hazel's like, fucking great. And Percy and Annabeth are in Tartarus. They live. They fall in there. It's a nightmare down there, though. They have to drink fire to stay alive. And they immediately run into Arachne. Percy slaughters her, and Annabeth is kind of, like, scared by the ferocity at which he did that, to be honest. And then they run into those cheerleader fucking bitches, the dragon cheerleader leg bitches. They're about to get slaughtered, but their friend Bob from the Demigod Files shows up, and he's helping them. He used to be a Titan, but Percy, Nico, and Talia, like, wiped his memory and said he was Bob. So he's there. He's their friend Bob. He's gonna help them now. Jason and Leo find these little gremlin guys, these little dwarf, like, gnome guys, who are stealing all their stuff, but they get them to back off. I'm so bad at this. All I can remember from House of Hades is Tartarus stuff, and Nico getting outed. Because Nico gets fucking outed by Cupid. It's traumatic and horrible. Hazel gets better control over her powers over the mist, at least. They get stood up by this, like, pirate guy who's like, you have to clean my shoes and I'm gonna kick you off this cliff. But Hazel controls the mist, basically, and winds up giving him this vision that he had kicked Jason off the cliff when he hadn't, and then she ends up, like, kicking him off the cliff, and they get out of there. So she's got, like, powers over the mist now. Frank knows that he has something too. Frank has his own little side quest where he basically gets, like, a blessing from Ares of his own, basically, where he gets all buff and, like, taller and stuff after, like, protecting his friends and, like, doing this huge feat in battle. Percy and Annabeth run into these curse monsters in Tartarus, and Bob starts remembering who he is at this point as well, where basically every one of these little demon ladies they cut down, someone who had wished a curse on them in their, like, dying breath, it becomes true. So Annabeth goes blind because of the Cyclops and sea monsters. Polyphemus. Percy just gets, like, you know, he gets, like, an arrow basically sent through him because of that guy in Battle of the Labyrinth. Annabeth gets this curse where she can never feel or hear or see Percy because of Calypso. Bob ends up saving them from these monsters, though, and takes them to meet this giant who's good and who heals, like, Percy and gives them some like rest and gives Annabeth a sword. Leo somehow winds up on Ogygia, and Calypso's real mean to him at first, but she falls in love with him and he promises her that he's going to be back, but the boat comes and he leaves and he goes back and joins the quest. And everyone makes it to the House of Hades. And Hazel controls the mist, and Frank does something in House of Hades. He does something big that I remember as they're going through the actual house. And Annabeth got a message to Raina, and Raina is now off on her own journey trying to find them as well. Annabeth and Percy get this death mist over them, and Percy blood bends for a minute. And Annabeth has her 17th birthday, and then they have this massive fight before they get into the Doors of Death, and they realize that someone has to hold the doors from the outside, and Percy tries to do it and let Annabeth go, but she's like, no, you fucking idiot, you're not doing that. And Bob ends up holding it, and he sacrifices his own desires to see the sun and the stars again to let them go and to save them. And they go up this elevator, and it's got like just shitty fucking music playing, and then they get to the rest of the squad and more fights happen, but they all live. And then they have a little picnic with Raina, where they basically decide that Raina and Nico are going to, with Coach Hedge accompanying them, take the Athena Parthenos back to Camp Half-Blood together immediately, while the rest of them go on and head to Greece. I don't remember what happens in Blood of Olympus. Nico and Raina go off on their own. They do, and they get that Athena Parthenos to camp, and Octavian betrays them and starts firing on Camp Half-Blood too early, but then he dies. Percy is suicidal for a minute, and we don't really address it. Piper has pretty singing charm speak, and Percy finally says he loves Annabeth, and it's from Piper's point of view. They get to the ancient lands, and they're like, we need blood spilled for this to work. And Percy gets a fucking nosebleed, and that's what does it. And they all fight alongside their parents, and it's really cool, but it's not fucking expanded on at all. And they get to Camp Half-Blood, and Piper just sings Gaia to sleep, and Leo gets killed, but he comes back because he did something with Apollo, and that's why Trials of Apollo happened. And Octavian dies. I think I said Octavian dies. That's Blood of Olympus. Well, this video was shorter than my Percy Jackson one, at least. This is the best I can give you. Thank you very much for watching. If you did, I seriously really appreciate you guys just letting me make dumb videos like this. But thank you for being here. I love you guys. I will see you soon. Mwah.